They say the worst mistakes are the ones that make you beloved by monsters. The coffee hit his suit at exactly 9:47 a.m. Adanna Adewale watched the brown liquid spread across pristine black wool, watched it seep into fabric that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, watched her carefully constructed morning dissolve into a single careless moment in the Grand Han Hotel lobby. "Oh God, I'm so..." The words died in her throat. Because the man didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even look down at the stain blooming across his chest like an accusation. He just stood there perfectly still, while the entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. When he finally looked at her, Adanna felt ice slide down her spine. His eyes were dark, not the warm dark of Lagos nights, but the dark of deep water where predators hunted. His face could have been carved from marble by someone who understood that beauty could be a weapon. A thin white scar traced his jawline like someone had once tried to rewrite him and failed. "You should watch where you are going," he said in Korean, each word clipped and precise as a blade. Adanna Adewale was the daughter of Cheikh Adewale, a man whose name made stock markets tremble, and whose banking empire stretched from Lagos to London. She'd been raised in compounds with security details, had attended the best schools, had been taught that money was power and power was everything. But her mother had also taught her something else, that no amount of money should make you bow to disrespect. "You should watch where you're walking," she shot back in English, her Nigerian accent strong and unapologetic. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It had weight. It pressed against chests and made breathing difficult. Around them, people who had been walking, talking, living their lives froze mid-step. I slid away. Hands reached for phones not to help, but to disappear into. The man studied her, really studied her, like he was memorizing every detail of her brown skin. Her perfectly twisted locks pulled into an elegant updo, her Ankara print blazer over designer jeans. Like he was cataloging her for some future purpose she couldn't imagine. Then he smiled. It wasn't a real smile. It was the smile sharks made before they struck. All teeth, no warmth. A smile that said, "I see you. I know you now. And you have no idea what you've just done. Be more careful next time," he said softly in English now, his accent European influenced and unsettling. Then he was walking away, his footsteps silent on marble. Adanna stood there, her portfolio clutched against her chest, her heart hammering. Around her, the lobby slowly exhaled, conversations resuming, movement flowing like someone had pressed play on a paused video. An older Korean woman with a Hermes bag touched her arm gently. "You should not have spoken to him that way," she whispered in careful English, her eyes wide with something between fear and pity. "Who was that?" But the woman was already walking away, her heels clicking rapidly like she couldn't escape fast enough. Adanna made it to her investor meeting 20 minutes late, hands still shaking. She tried to focus on her presentation, the sketches she'd labored over for months, the business plan that would prove to her father she didn't need his money or his name to build something extraordinary. But her mind kept circling back to those cold, dark eyes and that predatory smile. She had no idea she'd just caught the attention of Seoul's most dangerous man. Adanna had arrived in Seoul 3 months ago with a mission and a chip on her shoulder. The mission? Build a fashion brand that would bridge African and Korean aesthetics, prove her creative vision was worth more than her last name, and show her father that his brilliant, Harvard-educated daughter was more than just a pretty face to marry off to another banking family. The chip. Everyone assumed her success would be bought, not earned. "You're Cheikh Adewale's daughter," people said. Like that explained everything about her. Like her degree in fashion business from Harvard, her internships at actual fashion houses, her genuine talent meant nothing compared to the size of her father's bank account. Her father had offered to fund her brand. "Let me give you 50 million naira to start," he'd said over breakfast in their Banana Island mansion, his tone casual like he was offering pocket change. "You can have the brand up and running in 6 months. "I don't want your money, Daddy." Cheikh had looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and frustration. Pride doesn't build empires, Adanna. Neither does being handed everything. That's why she'd applied for the Seoul Scholarship, a prestigious program for international designers, fully funded, intensely competitive. When the acceptance letter arrived, her father hadn't celebrated. He'd looked worried. "Korea is not Lagos," he'd warned. "The rules are different. The people are different. And you, my daughter, have never learned to be invisible. Why would I want to be invisible? Because visible black women in foreign countries become targets. Her mother, Ngozi, had been more practical. If you insist on going, at least take the credit card. And for God's sake, Adanna, try not to start trouble. But trouble, it seemed, had been waiting for her in a hotel lobby with a coffee cup and a face she'd never forget. Her roommate Maya, a Korean-American photographer who'd adopted Adanna the day she'd arrived, confused and jet-lagged, had been the one to explain exactly how much trouble she was in. You spilled coffee on Vincenzo? Maya's voice had climbed 3 octaves when Adanna told her. Girl, are you insane? Who is Vincenzo? Maya had pulled out her phone, fingers flying. God, where do I even start? Officially, he's a venture capitalist, businessman, investor. His face shows up in financial magazines, charity galas, all that legitimate stuff. And unofficially, he's the king of Seoul's underworld. Maya showed her phone screen, article after article with headlines that made Adanna's stomach turn. People say he's connected to everything: shipping, real estate, underground trade networks. Competitors who challenge him suddenly decide to retire. Witnesses disappear. Politicians vote the way he wants them to vote. But nothing ever sticks because he's smart. Scary smart. He's Korean? Half. Korean mother, Italian father. That's where the name Vincenzo comes from. Grew up between Seoul and Rome. Speaks like 6 languages. And Maya hesitated. People say he's a psychopath. Like clinically. No empathy. No fear. Just cold calculation. Adanna had laughed, trying to convince herself it was ridiculous. But the laugh died when the first sign arrived. The black orchid appeared 3 days later, placed carefully on her university locker. A small card attached: be careful. Maya's research revealed that black orchids in Korean culture meant warning, danger, someone marking you as theirs. It's a threat, Maya whispered. He's telling you he can reach you anywhere. Then the car started following her. A sleek black sedan with tinted windows that appeared outside the library, her apartment, the cafe where she studied. Always watching. Always waiting. The phone calls came at 2 a.m. unknown numbers. No voices. Just silence that felt like someone breathing on the other end, letting her know they were there. Adanna tried to stay rational. She was Nigerian. She'd grown up with security threats, had been taught how to handle unwanted attention. But this felt different. This felt personal. You need to go home, Maya urged after the 4th silent call. My cousin works in Gangnam. He knows people who know Vincenzo. He says when Vincenzo marks someone, bad things happen. Always. I'm not running away because some gangster is playing mind games. Adanna, this isn't a game. People who cross Vincenzo don't just get scared. They disappear. But Adanna was stubborn. It was a trait her father loved and hated in equal measure. She'd worked too hard to get to Seoul. Had dreams too big to let some criminal intimidate her into leaving. Then Maya's storage unit burned. Maya had been building a photography portfolio, saving for months to rent a small space in Hongdae for a pop-up exhibition. Everything she owned, camera equipment, prints, samples, was stored in a unit in Mapo. The call came at 6 a.m. It's gone, Maya sobbed. Everything. They're saying electrical fire, but Adanna. Only my unit burned. Just mine. At the scene, firefighters were packing up. The unit on either side of Maya's? Completely untouched. Just Maya's had burned. Everything reduced to ash and twisted metal. This is a message, Maya said, her voice hollow. He's saying, I can hurt the people around you and there's nothing you can do. That's when Adanna got angry. She was the daughter of Adewale. She'd been raised to fight, not to cower. If this Vincenzo wanted to play games, she'd walk right up to him and end it. Maya tried to stop her. You can't just walk up to him. People don't do that. Watch me. She found his office, a gleaming tower in Gangnam where security wore earpieces and moved like soldiers. She made it as far as the lobby before 2 men in black suits materialized beside her. Miss Adewale, one said in perfect English. Mr. Vincenzo is not available. How do you know my name? Mr. Vincenzo knows everything about you. He suggests you go home. I'm not leaving until I speak to him. The second man sighed, looking tired. Miss Adewale, you've been given a gift. Few people who offend Mr. Vincenzo are still breathing. He's been lenient. Don't waste that. I don't want his leniency. I want him to leave me and my friends alone. That's not how this works. You disrespected him publicly. In his world, that requires a response. The fact that you're still alive should tell you something. It tells me he's a bully and a coward. Both men went very still. Even the lobby seemed to stop breathing. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that, the first man said carefully. We're going to escort you out, and you're going to go home and be grateful that we heard you say that and not someone else. They put her in a taxi, closed the door, sent her away like a child who'd wandered somewhere dangerous. But as the taxi pulled away, Adanna looked up at the building and saw a figure in a top-floor window. Too far to see clearly, but she knew, somehow she knew, it was him. Watching. Always watching. The gallery invitation arrived by courier 2 weeks later. Thick cream paper, elegant calligraphy, an invitation to present her work at an exclusive showing in Samcheong-dong. It was the kind of opportunity young designers dreamed about. Maya was suspicious. This came out of nowhere. Right after you went to his office? Adanna, this is a trap. Or it's a legitimate opportunity. Nothing about this situation is legitimate. But Adanna went anyway because she was ambitious and foolish in equal measure. She brought 5 pieces from her proposed collection. Designs that merged a dire indigo with hanbok silhouettes, Igbo patterns with Korean minimalism. A vision of 2 cultures learning to speak the same language through fabric. The gallery was intimate, maybe 50 people, the kind of crowd where everyone knew everyone except for Adanna. She stood by her pieces, trying to explain her vision in broken Korean and passionate English, and people seemed genuinely interested. Then the room went quiet. Not the polite quiet of people listening. The dangerous quiet. Adanna turned. Vincenzo stood in the doorway like he owned it. The same black suit, the same carved face, the same cold eyes that had haunted her dreams. Behind him stood an army of men in black, positioned at every exit like they were securing a crime scene rather than attending an art show. He walked toward her and the crowd parted like water. No one spoke. No one moved. They just watched and waited to see what would happen. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive and cold like winter wind. Miss Adewale, he said in English, his accent precise. Your work is impressive. Her throat closed. Her tongue felt thick and useless. He reached out and touched her blazer design, fingers tracing the attire pattern. Yoruba resist dyeing technique, yes? The indigo is traditionally made from fermented leaves. Your people have been practicing this craft for centuries. How did he know that? I studied art history, he said, reading her expression. Before I became what I am, I wanted to understand beautiful things. How they're made. Why they matter. His hand dropped. His eyes stayed on her. You've been trying to see me. Coming to my office. Making demands. This interests me. You've been terrorizing me, Adanna forced out. The flowers, the calls, the car following me. Maya's storage unit. The storage unit wasn't me. I don't believe you. He smiled that terrible smile. If I wanted to send you a message, Miss Adewale, I would be much more direct and much more terrifying. That fire? That was someone else. Someone who wants you afraid. Someone who wants you to run. Then who? That's what I'm trying to understand. He gestured to her pieces. May I? She nodded because what choice did she have? He walked slowly along her display, examining each piece with genuine attention. His bodyguards maintained distance, but their presence felt like an electric fence. Invisible but deadly. You want to build bridges between cultures, Vincenzo said finally. You want to prove that beautiful things from different worlds can coexist. That's naive. Anger flared through her fear. It's hopeful. Hope is a luxury. In my world, hope gets people killed. Then I'm glad I don't live in your world. But you do, Miss Adewale. The moment you spilled coffee on me, the moment you spoke to me with disrespect in a public place, you entered my world. And my world has rules. I don't care about your rules. You should. He stepped closer, too close. She had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. In my world, disrespect requires a response. Always. If I allow one person to disrespect me without consequence, Others will think they can do the same. Then my organization crumbles. So you're going to kill me over a coffee stain? Kill you? He looked genuinely surprised. No. If I wanted you dead, you would have never left the Grand Han that day. The casual way he said it made her stomach turn. Then what do you want? Vincenzo studied her for a long moment. Around them the gallery had emptied. Everyone had slipped out quietly, leaving them alone with his men. I want to understand why you're not afraid of me. Everyone fears me. Politicians, businessmen, criminals, they all understand what I'm capable of. But you. He shook his head slightly. You called me a coward. Your men told you. My men tell me everything. He gestured to one of them, who approached with a folder. Inside was a dossier. On her. Photos of her apartment, her university, her routes. Her family. Her father's bank in Lagos. Her mother's boutique. Her younger sister's school. You've been watching my family? Her voice came out strangled. I investigate everyone relevant to me. It's how I stay alive. He flipped to the last page. An old photograph, her grandfather shaking hands with another man in front of a ship, dated 1987. That's your grandfather. That's my father. They did business together, shipping, imports, some legal, some less so. Your grandfather made promises. Promises that were never kept. When he died, those debts transferred. That has nothing to do with me. Doesn't it? You carry his name. Your father built his fortune on money from those deals. Everything you are traces back to promises made on a dock in 1987. You're insane. I'm thorough. He closed the folder. The universe has a sense of humor. You disrespected me through accident and ignorance. Now I discover you were always meant to be part of my world. Our families are already connected. That's not. Here's what's going to happen, he interrupted, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. You'll continue with your collection. You'll create beautiful things. And I'll make sure you have resources to do so. I don't want your money. My father is Cheikh Adewale. I don't need funding. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise maybe. Cheikh Adewale, the banking king of West Africa. He smiled. You're not here on scholarship because you needed it. You're here because you wanted to prove you could succeed without your father's name. So what? So that makes this even more interesting. You have money, connections, your father could crush half of Seoul's business sector with a phone call. Yet you're here alone trying to build something by yourself. He leaned in closer. Pride. That's your weakness. It's not a weakness. It is when it makes you vulnerable. He straightened. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a partnership. I fund your collection, provide security, open doors. In exchange, you stay in Seoul where I can see you. Why would I agree? Because the alternative is that I close every door you're trying to open. I make sure no gallery shows your work. No manufacturer produces your designs. No distributor touches your brand. I can do that with 3 phone calls. His smile was ice. Or I can make all of this possible. Your choice. It wasn't a choice. It was a trap dressed as opportunity. But Adanna thought about the artisans back home. The weavers, the dyers, the women who trusted her with their craft. About proving to her father she could build something real. If I agree, I have conditions. Of course you do. My artisans get paid fairly. I maintain full creative control. No one touches my work. And you stay away from my family and friends. Acceptable. With one addition, dinner. Once a week. You and I. That's not business. That's surveillance. That's how I do business. He extended his hand. She looked at his hand like it was a snake. Everything screamed not to take it. But she thought about her dreams. About the doors that could open or close. She took his hand. His grip was cool, firm, possessive, like he was sealing more than a business deal. One more thing, Vincenzo said, not releasing her hand. The person who burned your friend's storage unit? I'll find them. And I'll make sure they understand that touching anything connected to you is touching you. And touching you is touching me. He released her and turned to leave. At the door he paused. Friday, 8 p.m. I'll send a car. Wear something that reminds me why I'm tolerating your disrespect. Then he was gone. The first dinner was at a restaurant so exclusive it didn't have a name or a sign. Just a door in Cheongdam-dong that opened only if the doorman recognized you. Vincenzo was already there when Adanna arrived, sitting at a private table in a room that overlooked the Han River. He stood when she entered, a gesture that seemed almost gentlemanly except for the cold calculation in his eyes. "You came," he said. "I made a deal. Most people break deals with me and hope I don't notice. I'm not most people." "No. You're definitely not." He gestured to the seat across from him. "Please." The meal was surreal. He ordered in flawless Korean, dishes appearing like art, delicate, expensive, beautiful. He asked questions about her vision, her designs, her process. Questions that revealed he'd done more than casual research. "Your mother runs a boutique in Victoria Island," he said. "She trained with a master weaver in Abeokuta. That's where you learned. You've been thorough. Always." He sipped wine. "Your father didn't want you to come to Seoul. He offered to fund your brand in Lagos. How do you? I know everything about you, Adanna. Your birthday, your favorite food, the name of your first boyfriend, the fact that you hate mornings and love thunderstorms. I know you got into Harvard and chose fashion business over economics because your father wanted you to take over his bank and you wanted to prove you were more than his heir." The way he said her name, Adanna, sent chills down her spine. Not the butchered pronunciation most Koreans used, but perfect Igbo inflection like he'd studied how to say it correctly. That's disturbing. That's survival. I don't enter any arrangement without understanding every variable. I'm not a variable. I'm a person. You're both. He set down his glass. "Tell me about your childhood." "Why?" "Because I want to understand what made you brave enough to insult a man you didn't know in a public space." So she told him, stories about Lagos, about compound life, about her father's banking empire and her mother's creativity, about learning to navigate a world where money was power but creativity was freedom. She told him about being Chike Adewale's daughter, about the assumptions people made, about wanting to be more than a name. And strangely, Vincenzo listened. Really listened. Not with the fake attention people gave when they were waiting for their turn to talk, but genuine focus that made her feel like she was the only person in the world. "You understand," he said finally, "what it's like to be defined by your family. To have people see your name before they see you. Is that why you use Vincenzo? No last name. My last name is complicated. My father was Korean Italian, my mother pure Korean. Neither family wanted me. I was too Korean for the Italians, too Italian for the Koreans. So I became Vincenzo, just Vincenzo. A name I chose. An identity I built." It was the first personal thing he'd shared. The first crack in his armor. The second dinner was easier. The third easier still. By the fourth, Adanna found herself almost looking forward to their meetings, which terrified her. Because Vincenzo was dangerous. People literally feared him. She'd researched after their first dinner, found articles about businesses that collapsed after crossing him, about witnesses who disappeared, about the rumors that followed him like shadows. A man nicknamed the Ice King by Seoul's underground because nothing moved him. Nothing made him feel. But with her he was different. Still calculating, still controlled, but there were moments, brief flashes, where something almost human appeared behind those cold eyes. "Why me?" she asked one night after their 7th dinner. "Why this obsession? Because that's what this is, right? You're obsessed." Vincenzo didn't deny it. "You're the first person in a decade who's treated me like a human instead of a monster. The first person who's looked at me and seen something other than fear or greed. Maybe because I didn't know who you were when we met. Maybe. Or maybe because you're too stubborn to be smart." He leaned forward. "I've been thinking about you constantly since that morning. That moment when you snapped back at me, everyone else would have groveled. But you looked at me like I was the one being rude. Like you were the one with power. I didn't have power. I had ignorance. Same thing sometimes." His hand moved across the table, not quite touching hers but close. "I've built an empire on fear, Adanna. Fear is predictable. Fear is useful. But you? You're not afraid enough to be useful. That makes you dangerous." "Dangerous to whom?" "To me." The air between them felt electric. Adanna knew she should leave, should run, should get as far from this man as possible. But she was drawn to him in a way that had nothing to do with logic. "You're not what I expected," she admitted. "What did you expect?" "A monster." "I am a monster. Just a charming one." He wasn't wrong. The relationship, if you could call it that, shifted when Adanna discovered the truth about her family's connection to Vincenzo's. She'd been working late at the university, researching traditional textile patterns, when she stumbled across an old article in the International Business Archives. A piece about Nigerian-Korean trade relations in the 1980s, featuring a photograph of a shipping deal. Her grandfather, Vincenzo's father, and a third man she didn't recognize. She'd taken the article to her father on a video call. Chaik's face went carefully blank, the expression he used when managing a crisis. "Where did you get this?" "University archives." "Daddy, what was grandfather doing with these men?" A long silence. Then, "Your grandfather made deals that kept our family wealthy, Adanna. Not all of them were clean." "What kind of deals?" "The kind we don't talk about." He rubbed his face, suddenly looking older. "After your grandmother died, your grandfather got involved with some difficult people. Shipping mostly, moving goods between Nigeria and Asia. Some legal, some less so. It ended badly. People got hurt. Money disappeared. The Korean partner," he stopped. "Vincenzo's father." "How do you know about Vincenzo?" His voice sharpened. "Adanna, what have you done?" She told him. All of it. The coffee spill, the stalking, the deal, the dinners. She watched her father's face go from concern to anger to something that looked like fear. "Do you understand what you've done?" he said quietly. "Do you understand who that man is?" "A criminal. A powerful criminal. Adanna, I've dealt with men like Vincenzo. They don't just want business, they want ownership. And now you've given him access to you. I can handle it." "No, you can't. Come home. Now. I'll handle this." "I'm not running, Daddy. This isn't about running. It's about surviving. That family destroyed your grandfather. They left him broken, bankrupt, ruined. He spent his last years trying to rebuild what they took from him. And now you're—" He stopped, breathing hard. "Come home, Adanna. Please." But she didn't. Because she was stubborn and because some part of her, a part she didn't want to examine too closely, didn't want to leave Vincenzo. She confronted him at their next dinner. "My father told me about our families. About what your father did to my grandfather." Vincenzo didn't look surprised. "I wondered when you'd find out. You knew. This whole time you knew our families had history and you didn't tell me. I was waiting for the right moment." "There's no right moment for that kind of truth." She stood up, her chair scraping back. "Your father destroyed my grandfather. Left him broken. And now you're what? Getting revenge? Finishing what he started." "Sit down, Adanna." "No. I want answers. Did you orchestrate our meeting? The coffee, the gallery invitation, was all of it planned? Sit down." His voice carried an edge that made her obey instinctively. "I didn't plan the coffee. That was genuine accident. But the rest?" He shrugged. "I took advantage of opportunity. When I realized who you were, I saw a chance to understand what happened between our families. By manipulating me? By observing you. There's a difference." He leaned back. "My father and your grandfather made a deal in 1987. They were going to move textile machinery from Korea to Nigeria, legal on the surface, but underneath it was a way to move other things. Money mostly. Laundering for both sides. My grandfather wouldn't. Your grandfather was brilliant and ruthless. He used the deal to fund his banking expansion. But then something went wrong. Money disappeared. My father blamed your grandfather. Your grandfather blamed my father. Men died, Adanna. Not just careers destroyed, actual bodies." She felt sick. "And you want revenge?" "I want understanding. I inherited my father's empire, including his grudges. But I also inherited his questions. What really happened? Who betrayed whom? Why did everything collapse?" He looked at her intently. "You're not responsible for your grandfather's sins. I'm not punishing you for his mistakes. Then what are you doing?" "I'm trying to figure out if history has to repeat itself." He reached across the table, taking her hand before she could pull away. My father and your grandfather destroyed each other through distrust and greed. I don't want that pattern to continue. I want something different. Different how? I don't know yet. That's why I'm keeping you close. Why I'm watching you. Why I can't seem to let you go even though logic says I should. His grip tightened slightly. You're an obsession I don't fully understand, Adanna Adewale. And that makes you more dangerous to me than any competitor or enemy I've ever faced. The attack started 2 weeks after that conversation. First, one of Adanna's artisan contacts in Lagos was threatened. Men showing up at her workshop, asking questions about the girl in Korea, making it clear that bad things would happen if she continued the partnership. Then a shipment of fabric meant for Adanna's collection disappeared in transit. Just vanished, no trace, no explanation. Then Maya was followed home by men who made it clear they knew where she lived, what route she walked, when she was most vulnerable. It's not him, Adanna told Maya, even though she wasn't entirely sure. Vincenzo said he'd protect us. Then who is it? They got their answer when Hyan appeared. Hyan was one of Vincenzo's men, the weary one from the office building, the one who'd called her Miss Adewale and looked exhausted by the world's cruelties. He showed up at the university, sitting on a bench like he'd been waiting for her. Walk with me, he said in English. We need to talk. They walked around the campus, Hyan keeping careful distance, always watching the periphery. You need to understand something about Vincenzo, he said finally. He's powerful, but power makes enemies. And right now you're his weakness. I'm not his anything. You are. Everyone in our world knows it. He's distracted, making unusual decisions, protecting you when he should be focusing on business. His enemies see an opportunity. What kind of enemies? Old partners. Competitors. People who've waited years for a crack in his armor. Hyan stopped walking, turned to face her. There's a man, I won't say his name, but he was in business with Vincenzo's father and your grandfather. The deal that went wrong in 1987? He was the third partner. He lost everything. And now he sees you as his revenge. The photograph flashed in Adanna's mind. The third man she hadn't recognized. He's using you to hurt Vincenzo. The threats, the attacks, they're designed to make Vincenzo choose between his empire and you. If he protects you, he looks weak. If he abandons you, he looks dishonorable. Either way, he loses. So what am I supposed to do? Leave. Go back to Lagos. Disappear. It's the only way you stay safe. Vincenzo won't let me leave. No, Hyan agreed. He won't. That's why you're in danger. That night, Adanna's apartment was broken into. Nothing stolen but everything disturbed. Drawers opened, papers scattered, a message clear. We can reach you anytime. Vincenzo appeared at her door an hour after the police left. He didn't knock, just used a key she hadn't known he had. Pack a bag, he said. You're coming with me. I'm not going anywhere with you. That wasn't a request. His voice carried that dangerous edge. The people targeting you won't stop. They'll escalate until they either kill you or force me to make a move. I'm not letting either happen. So what, I'm supposed to be your prisoner now? You're supposed to be smart enough to accept help when you need it. He moved into her apartment, checking rooms, windows, exits, a professional security sweep. The third man from 1987? His name is Minjun. He's been in prison for tax evasion, out for 3 months, and he's been quietly gathering allies. He wants to destroy me, and he's decided you're the way to do it. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I was handling it. He turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw something other than cold calculation in his eyes. Something that might have been fear. I've been dealing with Minjun for weeks, trying to neutralize him without violence. But he's escalating faster than I expected. He's desperate, and desperate men are unpredictable. So what happens now? Now I keep you safe, even if you hate me for it. He moved her that night to one of his properties, a penthouse apartment in Hanamdong with security that made her father's compound look amateur. Bodyguards outside the door, cameras everywhere, rules about when she could leave and where she could go. This is kidnapping, Adanna said, standing in the middle of the vast living room. This is protection. Vincenzo was pouring whiskey at the bar. His movements precise. Minjun won't stop. He's already tried to kill 2 of my business partners. He'll try for you next. Because of you. Because you made me visible in your world. Yes. He didn't deny it, didn't make excuses. Because of me. Which is why I'm going to fix it. How? He handed her a glass. By ending him. The casual way he said it, like he was discussing a business transaction rather than murder, should have terrified her. But Adanna had grown up in Lagos, where violence was a language people spoke fluently. She understood what Vincenzo was really saying. He would kill to protect her. When? She asked. Soon. But until then you stay here. You stay safe. You let me handle this. They were alone in the apartment. Vincenzo had dismissed even his bodyguards, leaving just the two of them in this gilded cage. The city sprawled below them, Seoul's lights like stars reflected on earth. I spoke to my father, Adanna said. After I found out about our families. He told me to come home. Why didn't you? Good question. Why hadn't she? Logic said she should have boarded the first flight to Lagos, should have let her father's money and power insulate her from this dangerous world. Because I don't run from things that scare me, she said finally. Even when you should? Even then. She met his eyes. And because some part of me wanted to see how this ends. Whatever this is between us. Vincenzo moved closer, close enough that she could see the faint scar on his jaw, could count his eyelashes if she wanted to. What do you think this is? I don't know. Obsession maybe. Control. You wanting to own something that won't be owned. All of that is true. His hand came up, fingertips tracing her jawline with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. But it's also more. You're the first person in years who's made me feel something other than calculation. You make me angry and curious and protective and terrified. You make me feel, Adanna. And feelings are dangerous in my world. Then let me go. I can't. His thumb brushed her lower lip. I've tried. Every logical part of me says you're a liability, a weakness I can't afford. But I can't let you go. I physically can't make myself do it. That's not love, Vincenzo. That's obsession. Maybe they're the same thing. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. Maybe love is just obsession we've decided to call beautiful. She should have pulled away. Should have slapped him, should have demanded he release her. But instead, Adanna found herself leaning into him, found her hands reaching for his face, pulling him closer. The kiss was inevitable. Had been inevitable since that morning in the Grand Han lobby. It wasn't gentle or romantic. It was desperate and consuming, two people who'd been circling each other for months finally colliding. His hands tangled in her locks, her fingers gripped his shirt, and for a moment the world narrowed to just this. His mouth on hers, his body against hers, the feeling of finally giving in to something she'd been fighting since the beginning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincenzo pressed his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. No, you don't. But I'm not giving you up. I know. Even if it makes me selfish and dangerous and everything your father warned you about. I know that too. She pulled back enough to look at him properly. But here's what you need to know about me, Vincenzo. I'm Adanna Adewale. I'm Nigerian. I'm black. I'm the daughter of a man who built a banking empire from nothing. I don't break easily. I don't bend. And I won't be owned. Not by you, not by anyone. He smiled, a real smile this time. Not the predatory one, but something genuine and warm. I know. That's why I can't let you go. The attack came 3 nights later during her fashion show. Adanna had fought Vincenzo for the right to continue with her collection debut. I'm not hiding, she'd insisted. I came to Seoul to build something. If I let fear stop me, then Minjun wins without even trying. Vincenzo had finally agreed, but only with conditions. The show would be at a venue he controlled, security would be overwhelming, and she would follow every protocol his team established. The venue was a converted warehouse in Seoul, industrial, beautiful, the kind of space that made fashion feel like art. Her pieces lined the runway. Designs that merged attire and hanbok, that made Lagos and Seoul sing in the same voice. The artisans from Nigeria had flown in, 5 women who trusted her with their craft, who sat in the front row with their hands inked from indigo, their dark skin glowing under the lights, their faces proud. Maya had photographed everything. Her new camera courtesy of Vincenzo, though he'd made it seem like insurance money. Models were lined up backstage. A mix of Korean and African women, each one chosen because they embodied the fusion Adanna was trying to create. The energy was electric. "You ready?" Maya asked, squeezing Adanna's hand. "I've been ready for this my whole life." The show began at 8 p.m. Music pulsed. A mix of Afrobeats and Korean hip-hop that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Lights flared and the first model walked. A tall Nigerian woman with skin like midnight wearing a dress that made people gasp. That made the traditional fashion critics reach for their phones to capture what they couldn't believe they were seeing. Vincenzo stood in the back surrounded by his men, watching not the runway but the room, always alert, always calculating threats. He told her he wouldn't relax until this night was over, until she was safe. The fifth model was walking when it happened. The lights cut. Not a flicker or a power surge. A complete sudden blackout that swallowed the venue. Screams erupted, people stumbling in darkness, the carefully controlled chaos of a fashion show becoming real chaos. Adanna's first thought was technical failure. Her second thought, as she heard glass shattering and men shouting, was that she'd been very, very wrong. Someone grabbed her arm in the darkness. She opened her mouth to scream but a hand covered it. A voice whispered urgently in Korean. "Miss Adewale with me. Now." It was Hyan. She recognized his voice, his careful formality even in crisis. He pulled her through backstage, moving with certainty through the darkness while around them people panicked and fled. They made it to a service exit when the lights came back on. Emergency lighting that cast everything in sickly red. That's when Adanna saw them. Men in black masks carrying weapons moving through the crowd with purpose. Not random attackers. Professionals. "Min-jun," Hyan breathed. "He's making his move." Gunshots cracked the air. People screamed, really screamed, the sound of genuine terror. Hyan pushed Adanna behind a rack of clothes, his body shielding hers, his hand inside his jacket reaching for a weapon. "Stay down. Don't move. Don't make a sound." Through a gap in the clothing, Adanna watched the scene unfold like a nightmare. Vincenzo's men were engaging Min-jun's attackers, but they were outnumbered. Flashes of gunfire lit the dark like lightning. People were running, trampling, desperate to escape. Then she saw him, Vincenzo, moving through the chaos like a predator through water. His suit was torn, blood on his shirt, his own or someone else's she couldn't tell, but his face was calm, almost serene, like this was what he was built for. He moved toward the largest group of attackers with a precision that was terrifying to watch. No wasted movement, no hesitation. He was a weapon that had been sharpened over years of violence. She watched him take down two men with his bare hands, watched him move with the kind of deadly grace that made it clear why people feared him. But there were too many. Even Adanna could see that. For every attacker Vincenzo's men took down, two more appeared. "He's going to get himself killed," she whispered. "He's protecting you," Hyan said flatly. "That's all he cares about right now." A figure emerged from the crowd, older, Korean, with a face that Adanna recognized from that old photograph. Min-jun. He was carrying a gun, moving toward where Vincenzo was fighting, and nobody was stopping him because everyone was too busy fighting their own battles. Adanna didn't think. She just moved. She grabbed a clothing rack. Heavy metal loaded with her designs, and pushed with everything she had. It rolled across the floor, fast and heavy, slamming into Min-jun just as he raised his weapon. The impact sent him sprawling, the gun skittering across the floor. Time seemed to slow. Min-jun looked up, saw Adanna, saw the young black woman who had just saved Vincenzo's life. His face twisted with rage and something that looked like satisfaction. Like this was exactly what he'd wanted. He lunged for his gun. Hyan was faster. The shot was clean, professional, permanent. Min-jun collapsed, his hand inches from the weapon, his eyes already going glassy. Silence fell like snow. The fighting stopped as both sides registered what had just happened. The man who'd orchestrated this attack was dead, killed by one of Vincenzo's most loyal soldiers. Vincenzo was moving before the body hit the ground, crossing the space between them, his hands on Adanna's face, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "Adanna, answer me." "I'm fine. I'm fine." But she was shaking now, the adrenaline draining away, leaving her hollow and trembling. He pulled her against his chest, his heart hammering against her ear, his arms wrapped around her so tightly she could barely breathe. What were you thinking? You could have been killed. You should have stayed hidden. You should have. I saved your life, she interrupted. He pulled back to look at her, and his eyes were blazing, not with anger but with something more complicated. Yes, you did. You brilliant, reckless, impossible woman. You saved my life. Around them, Vincenzo's men were securing the venue, handling Minjun's remaining soldiers, calling in authorities who were on Vincenzo's payroll. The fashion show was ruined, models crying, guests traumatized, Adanna's beautiful collection scattered and damaged across the floor. But she was alive. Vincenzo was alive. And somehow impossibly they'd survived. The media called it a gang-related incident at fashion venue. The official story was rival criminal organizations. Nothing to do with the young Nigerian designer whose show had been targeted. Vincenzo's influence made sure of that. But in the world that mattered, the underground world of Seoul's power players, everyone knew the truth. Vincenzo had been challenged. His weakness had been exploited. And he'd emerged victorious but changed. He's different now, Maya told Adanna a week later. They were in the penthouse still, Adanna having not yet returned to her own apartment. My cousin says people are noticing. Vincenzo's making unusual decisions. Shutting down parts of his operation. Redirecting resources. What kind of resources? Legal ones. He's been funding legitimate businesses, pulling out of some of the shadier operations. It's like... Maya hesitated. It's like he's trying to become someone different. Adanna hadn't seen Vincenzo much since the attack. He'd been handling the fallout. Minjun's organization needed to be dismantled. Authorities needed to be managed. Loose ends needed to be tied up. But every night he returned to the penthouse late, exhausted, and every night he came to her room to check that she was safe before he disappeared into his own space. They existed in a strange limbo. Connected but not quite together. Protective but not quite loving. Something undefined and fragile. The conversation came on a Tuesday night. Adanna was working on redesigning her collection. Pieces that had been damaged in the attack, new sketches that incorporated what she'd learned. Vincenzo appeared in the doorway, watching her work. Can we talk? He asked. She set down her pencil. Of course. He sat across from her, and for the first time since she'd met him, Vincenzo looked uncertain, vulnerable, human. I've been thinking, he began, about what you said. About not being owned. About being your own person. Okay. And I realized you were right. What I was doing, keeping you close, controlling your movements, making decisions for you, that wasn't protection. That was possession. He met her eyes. I was doing to you what my father did to my mother. Trapping a brilliant woman and calling it love. Adanna felt her throat tighten. Vincenzo. Let me finish. Please. He took a breath. I don't know how to be normal. I was raised in violence, trained for cruelty, taught that emotions were weaknesses to be exploited. Love in my world is a weapon. Caring about someone makes them a target. So I've spent my entire adult life not caring about anything except power and survival. Until me. Until you. His smile was sad. You with your stubborn pride and your ridiculous courage. You who spilled coffee on me and called me a coward. You, this beautiful black woman from Lagos who saved my life when you should have run away. You made me feel something I thought I'd killed years ago. What's that? Hope. That maybe I could be something other than what I was made to be. Adanna reached across the table, taking his hand. His fingers were cold, always cold, but they tightened around hers like she was an anchor. I've been making changes, Vincenzo continued. Shutting down operations. Redirecting money into legitimate businesses. It's going to take years to fully transition, and I'll never be clean, too much blood on my hands for that. But maybe I can be better. Maybe I can build something that doesn't require fear. Why? Because I want to be someone you don't have to be ashamed of. Someone who deserves what you've given me. And what have I given you? A reason to be better than I am. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything between them settling like dust after a storm. I'm going back to Lagos, Adanna said finally. She felt him tense, saw his jaw tighten. When? Next month. My visa is expiring and I need to regroup. The show was destroyed, my collection needs to be completely rebuilt. And, she squeezed his hand, I need space to figure out what this is between us. And if I ask you to stay, then I'd say you're not listening. I'm not someone you can keep in a gilded cage, Vincenzo. I need to choose this. Choose you. Not be trapped into it. He nodded slowly. How long? 3 months. Maybe 4. Time to finish my designs in Legos, work with the artisans directly, present to my father that I can do this without his money. Time for you to figure out who you want to be when you're not playing protector. And then we see if what we have is real, or just trauma bonding and adrenaline. Vincenzo stood, pulling her up with him. He cupped her face in his hands, those cold fingers warm now against her brown skin. I'll wait. However long it takes. I'll become whoever I need to be. Just. His voice cracked slightly. Just come back. Don't make me wonder for the rest of my life what we could have been. I'll come back, she promised. But I come back as myself. As Adanna Adewale. Not as your possession or your weakness or your redemption project. As an equal partner or not at all. Equal partners, he agreed. In business and everything else. The kiss was different this time. Not desperate or consuming but gentle. A promise rather than a claiming. When they broke apart, Vincenzo pressed something into her hand. A business card. Simple, elegant, with just a phone number. My private line, he said. Only 5 people in the world have it. Now you're the 6th. Call me. Anytime. For anything. Even if it's just to tell me you're okay. She tucked the card into her pocket. What will you do while I'm gone? Build something worth coming back to. The months apart were harder than either of them expected. Adanna threw herself into work, returning to Lagos, to her mother's workshop, to the women who'd been weaving stories into cloth for generations. She redesigned her collection from scratch, incorporating what she'd learned in Seoul, what she'd survived. You're different, her mother observed one afternoon. They were working side by side, Adanna sketching while her mother sorted fabric. Harder. Older. I met someone, Adanna admitted. The dangerous man your father told me about? Did Daddy tell you everything? He told me enough. That you're in love with a criminal. That you nearly died. That you're too stubborn to listen to reason. Ngozi set down her fabric, looking at her daughter with eyes that had seen their own share of hardship. Is he worth it? I don't know yet. That's why I came home. To figure that out. Her father was less understanding. Chaik had wanted to fly to Seoul the moment he heard about the attack, had been restrained only by Adanna's insistence that she was handling it. When she finally came home, he'd hugged her so tightly she couldn't breathe, then immediately launched into lecture mode. You could have been killed. That man's world is violence and death. Why can't you see that? I do see it, Daddy. I'm not blind to who Vincenzo is. Then why? Because people are more than their worst parts. Because he's trying to change. And because. She met her father's eyes. Because I love him. Chaik looked like he wanted to argue, to forbid it, to use his considerable power to make this problem disappear. But instead he just sighed heavily. You're so much like your mother, he said finally. Stubborn and idealistic and convinced you can fix broken things. Did Mama fix you? Yes, he admitted. But I wasn't a mafia lord, Adanna. No, you were just a ruthless banker who bankrupted competitors and destroyed lives for profit. Different clothes, same violence. The comparison made him flinch. But he didn't argue because they both knew she was right. Power wore different masks, but underneath it was all the same hunger. Meanwhile, in Seoul, Vincenzo was keeping his promise. He shut down 3 of his most profitable operations: gambling, protection rackets, underground fighting rings. He redirected the money into legitimate businesses, funding startups, buying into technology companies, creating legal pathways for wealth. His organization resisted. Old loyalists questioned his judgment. Younger members saw weakness and tried to challenge him. Vincenzo dealt with each rebellion the same way, swiftly, decisively, but now with an offer of transition rather than elimination. You can leave the life, he told men who'd served him for years. I'll fund your exit, set you up in legal businesses. Or you can adapt. But the old ways, They're done. Some left. Some adapted. A few tried to fight and learned why Vincenzo had survived this long in a world that ate the weak. Hyan stayed, becoming Vincenzo's second-in-command in this new iteration. "You're doing this for her," he observed one night. "I'm doing it for me," Vincenzo corrected. "She just gave me a reason to start." They talked every week. Long phone calls where Adanna told him about fabric and patterns in her mother's workshop, where Vincenzo told her about business transitions and the challenges of changing a culture built on fear. They didn't talk about love or the future or what would happen when she returned. They just talked, learning each other in ways they hadn't had time for before. "I miss you," Vincenzo admitted 3 months in. It was 2 a.m. in Seoul, 6 p.m. in Lagos, and they'd been on the phone for 2 hours. "I miss you too," Adanna said. "When are you coming back?" "Soon. Another month maybe. I want to finish the collection properly this time." "Take your time. I'll be here." "Promise." "I promise. I'm not going anywhere. You're the first thing in my life worth waiting for." Adanna returned to Seoul on a Tuesday in March. The city looked different, or maybe she looked at it differently. Spring was arriving, cherry blossoms beginning to bloom. The air soft and full of possibility. Vincenzo met her at the airport himself, no bodyguards, no security detail. Just him in a simple black coat, his hands in his pockets, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on her. The moment their eyes met, Adanna felt something settle in her chest, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. He didn't rush forward, didn't sweep her into dramatic embrace. He just stood there waiting, letting her come to him in her own time. She walked slowly, her luggage forgotten, her entire focus on the Korean man who'd turned her world upside down with a coffee stain and a dangerous smile. "Hi," she said when she reached him. "Hi," he replied. "You look different." "I am different." He touched her face gently like he was confirming she was real. "You look exactly the same. Beautiful and stubborn and brave." Flattery. Observation. They left the airport together, his hand finding hers naturally, fingers intertwining like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. "Where are we going?" Adanna asked. "I want to show you something." He drove her to Seoul, to the warehouse where her fashion show had been attacked. But it looked completely different now. The space had been renovated, walls painted, lighting installed, security upgraded. A sign above the door read, "Adewale Vincenzo Atelier," in both English and Korean. Adanna stared. "What is this?" "Your studio. If you want it." Vincenzo led her inside. The space was perfect, cutting tables, industrial sewing machines, a showroom area, offices upstairs, living quarters for visiting artisans. "I bought the building, renovated it, staffed it with people who believe in what you're building. It's yours. Completely. No strings, no control. Your name on the deed, your business, your rules." She walked through the space in wonder, touching surfaces, imagining possibilities. "This must have cost." Don't think about cost. Think about what you can create here. Think about the artisans you can employ, the traditions you can preserve, the bridge you can build between cultures. He followed her, maintaining distance but staying close. "I'm trying to build legal businesses. Help me build this one." "As what?" "Partners. As whatever you want. Business partners, creative collaborators, friends who nearly died together." He paused. "Or more if you're willing." Adanna turned to face him fully. "I spent 4 months in Lagos thinking about you. About us. About whether what we have is real or just intensity and danger making us think we're in love. And I realized something. I'm Nigerian, we're practical people. We don't believe in fairy tales. We believe in what we can build with our own hands. So here's what I know. You're damaged and dangerous and you've done terrible things. I'm stubborn and ambitious and I refuse to be anyone's possession. Together, we're probably going to drive each other crazy." "Probably," he agreed. "But I also know that you make me feel seen in ways no one else has. You challenge me. You support my dreams without trying to own them. You're trying to be better, not for me but for yourself, which is the only reason that actually matters. And..." She stepped closer. "And I love you. Not despite who you are, but including all of it. The good, the bad, the complicated. Vincenzo's carefully controlled expression cracked. Adanna. But I have conditions. Of course you do. We build this together as equals. No secrets, no controlling behavior, no treating me like I'm fragile. I make my own choices about my business, my life, my risks. You get to be protective but not possessive. Understand? Understood. And if you ever lie to me about something important, if you ever try to manipulate me for my own good, I walk away and I don't come back. Fair. And one more thing. She poked his chest. You continue the work you started. Transitioning out of criminal operations, building legal businesses, becoming someone who can walk in the light instead of hiding in shadows. Not because I'm asking you to, but because you want to. I do want to. You just gave me a reason to start sooner rather than later. She smiled, finally letting her guard drop. Then yes. Let's build this together. The atelier, the business, a future. All of it. Vincenzo pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her waist, his forehead resting against hers. I don't deserve you. No, you don't. But I'm choosing you anyway. We're both choosing this. Thank you, he whispered. For coming back. For giving me a chance. For seeing something in me worth saving. I didn't save you, Vincenzo. You saved yourself. I just gave you a reason to start. The kiss was perfect. Not desperate or gentle but balanced. A meeting of equals, a promise of partnership. The beginning of something new built on the ashes of what they'd survived. When they finally broke apart, Adanna looked around the atelier again. So when can I start working? Vincenzo laughed. A real genuine laugh that transformed his face into something young and almost innocent. Whenever you want. It's yours. Then let's start now. I have a collection to finish and a fashion industry to disrupt. That's my girl, he said, and this time when he said it, it wasn't possessive. It was proud. The Adewale Vincenzo Atelier became one of Seoul's most talked about fashion houses within a year. Adanna's designs, that perfect fusion of Nigerian tradition and Korean minimalism, caught the attention of major buyers. Her commitment to fair wages and artisan partnerships made headlines. Her refusal to compromise her vision or her values made her an icon for young designers who wanted to succeed without selling their souls. And the fact that she was a young black woman from Nigeria making waves in Seoul's fashion scene? That made her a symbol of possibility. Vincenzo transitioned most of his empire into legal businesses. It took 3 years, countless negotiations, and a few carefully managed threats to people who refused to let go of the old ways. But eventually he emerged as a legitimate businessman. Still powerful, still connected, still dangerous to cross, but no longer living in the shadows. They married quietly in Lagos, a small ceremony that blended Igbo traditions with Korean customs. Adanna wore a dress of her own design. Attire patterns in white and indigo, cut in hanbok-inspired lines, her dark skin glowing against the fabric. Vincenzo wore a traditional Korean hanbok modified with oso-oak fabric from her mother's workshop. This Korean man embracing her culture as fully as she'd embraced his. Her father gave her away, and though he still didn't fully trust Vincenzo, he respected that his daughter had made her choice with open eyes. Take care of her, Chike told Vincenzo before the ceremony. I will. But she doesn't need taking care of. She needs partnership. Good answer, Chike said and shook his hand. Their life wasn't perfect. They fought about business decisions and creative directions. Vincenzo still had moments where his protective instincts overwhelmed his respect for her autonomy. Adanna still had moments where her stubbornness made compromise impossible. But they worked. They built something together that was stronger than either of them alone. The atelier expanded, satellite studios in Lagos and Accra, partnerships with cooperatives across West Africa, a program that trained young designers in both traditional and contemporary techniques. Adanna's name became known not for her father's wealth but for her own vision, for being the black woman who bridged continents through cloth. Vincenzo's businesses flourished in the legitimate world. He invested in technology, real estate, renewable energy. The whispers about his past never fully disappeared, but they faded into background noise against his present accomplishments. Hyen eventually left the organization to open a security consulting firm, specializing in protecting high-profile clients. His first client was the Adewale Vincenzo Atelier. Maya's photography became sought after in fashion circles. She documented Adanna's journey from that first disastrous coffee spill to becoming one of the most influential designers bridging African and Asian fashion. On the anniversary of the day they met, Vincenzo took Adanna back to the Grand Han Hotel. They stood in the lobby where it had all begun, where a clumsy moment and a stubborn response had set everything in motion. "Do you regret it?" Vincenzo asked. That morning, the coffee, the chaos, everything that followed. Adanna thought about it. About the fear and the danger. About the nights she couldn't sleep and the times she'd wondered if loving him would destroy her. She thought about the business they'd built, the lives they'd changed, the future they were creating together. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret a single moment. Even the terrifying ones. They made us who we are. We should probably send a gift to that woman with the fur coat. The one I was trying to avoid when you spilled the coffee." Adanna laughed. What would we even write on the card? "Thanks for existing at the right moment to change our lives." Something like that. He pulled her close, right there in the middle of the lobby where it had all begun. "I love you, Adanna Adewale Vincenzo." She'd kept both names, refused to give up her identity even as she'd taken his. It was very her, Vincenzo had said with affection and exasperation. "I love you too," she replied. "Even though you're still dangerous and controlling and occasionally terrifying. And you're still stubborn and reckless and impossible to manage. Good thing neither of us wants to be managed." They left the hotel hand in hand, walking into the Seoul evening. Behind them, in the lobby where their story had started with a coffee stain and a dangerous smile, life continued. Businessmen negotiating deals, tourists checking in. Everyday moments that might or might not become extraordinary depending on fate and courage and the willingness to spill coffee on the wrong person at exactly the right time. Because sometimes the worst mistakes are the ones that make you beloved by monsters. And sometimes, if you're very brave and very lucky, those monsters become something more. They become human. They become yours. They become home. In Seoul's Gangnam district, the Adewale Vincenzo atelier still stands. A testament to what can be built when two impossible people decide to be impossible together. The designs that come out of that space continue to bridge cultures, to tell stories through fabric, to prove that beauty can emerge from the most unlikely collisions. And somewhere in Lagos, in a workshop where women still dye fabric with traditional methods, there's a photograph on the wall. A young black woman with locks and an Ankara blazer standing next to a Korean man in a black suit, both smiling like they know a secret the rest of the world is still learning. The secret is simple. Sometimes love requires surviving the storm together. And sometimes the storm is exactly what you needed all along.